All right, let's dive into Lección 9. It's a beginner English lesson. You can think of us as your bilingual guides for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to help you navigate some common verbs and how to make sentences. The really cool thing about this lesson is that it uses both English and Spanish.
Yeah, it's like a decoder ring.
Exactly. By the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to use these verbs in your own English conversations. Like, no problem.
We're going to break it all down step by step.
Perfect.
Starting with the key verbs.
Okay. Get ready to practice your pronunciation because we'll be giving you the Spanish translations too.
Repetition is key when learning something new.
First up, we have to like, which is gustar in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have to enjoy, which is disfrutar.
What are some things you enjoy doing?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Think about hobbies or activities that make you happy.
I like that you're getting us thinking already.
It helps to make those personal connections with the language you're learning.
For sure. Okay, moving on to some action verbs. We have to prepare, which is preparar. To try, which is intentar. And then there's to make and to do. Both of these mean hacer in Spanish, and they can be a little tricky.
Don't worry, we'll clear that up in a bit.
I promise. Next up, we have to help, which is ayudar. Then there's to pay, which is pagar. And this one is a bit tricky because it has two meanings in English. It can mean to pay money, like when you buy something, but it can also mean to pay attention, like when you're really focusing on something.
Context is key here.
Yes.
Pay attention to the words around pay to figure out which meaning it has.
All right. Moving right along, we have to avoid, which means evitar, basically steering clear of the things you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Then to drive, which is conducir. And finally, to use, which means usar.
See if you can imagine yourself using these verbs in real life.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It might help you remember them better.
That's a really great tip. Okay, rounding out our verb list, we have to relax, which is relajar. We all need some of that. To understand, which is entender. Hopefully you're doing a lot of that right now. And to improve, which is mejorar. To lose, which is perder. To win, which is ganar. And finally, to gain, which can either mean ganar or ganar peso, depending on what you're gaining.
It really is amazing how much you can express with just a handful of verbs, right?
Oh no, it's pretty cool. So now that we've got our verbs down, let's talk about how we can use these to build sentences. This lesson gives us some examples of three basic sentence structures: affirmative, negative, and interrogative.
Basically, affirmative sentences are statements, negative sentences are denials, and interrogative sentences are questions.
Let's see them in action.
All right, so for affirmative sentences, we have I like to talk in English, which is me gusta hablar en inglés. I enjoy reading, which is disfruto leyendo. I'm preparing dinner. Estoy preparando la cena. And I'm trying to study. Estoy intentando estudiar.
You really see how the Spanish translations help make the meaning clear.
Right.
Yeah.
They're the building blocks for more complex sentences you'll learn later on.
I love how straightforward these are. Okay, so those were our positive statements. How about when we want to say the opposite?
For negative sentences, we just add not after the verb. So for example, I'm not using anything, which translates to no estoy usando nada. We also have we are not losing, no estamos perdiendo, and I'm not gaining weight, no estoy ganando peso.
That's so interesting how English and Spanish use a similar structure for negative statements.
Yeah.
So this linguistic connection
Exactly.
across languages.
Now, what happens when we want to ask a question?
That's where our interrogative sentences come in.
Yeah.
Our question-asking powerhouses.
Exactly. So here are a few examples. Are you helping him? Which is, le estás ayudando? Are you understanding? Estás entendiendo? And are you driving? Estás conduciendo?
Yeah, you can see how the word order changes a bit when we're forming a question. It's like we're rearranging the puzzle pieces to signal that we're asking for information. Okay. We've covered the basic sentence structures. Now it's time to tackle one of the trickiest parts of English grammar, the infamous make versus do dilemma.
I know, right?
I know.
Even native English speakers get this mixed up sometimes.
I know. Make and do both mean es in Spanish.
Yeah.
But in English, they have very specific uses. It's enough to make your head spin.
But don't worry, we're going to untangle this confusion.
Okay.
The key is to understand the concept behind each verb. So think of make as being used when you're creating something new or producing something new.
Okay, I can see that. Like make dinner. make my bed.
Nope.
Or like make a mistake.
Exactly.
You're bringing something new into existence.
Exactly. And do is used for more general activities, especially when you're not creating something tangible.
Okay, so like do homework, do business, do a favor.
Exactly.
It's more about the action itself
Exactly.
than creating some sort of object.
Right. And there are some exceptions to this rule. Some expressions just use make or do, but with practice, you'll start to get a feel for which verb to use in each situation.
It's all about getting comfortable with the nuances of English.
Exactly. And remember, making mistakes is part of the learning process.
So true. Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on another set of verbs that can be tricky for English learners. And these are win, gain, and beat, all of which can be translated as ganar in Spanish.
Yeah, these verbs have distinct meanings in English, so it's important to understand those subtle differences.
Okay, let's break it down. What's the deal with win?
So win is all about being victorious. You use it when you succeed in a competition or in a game. So you might say, we are winning the game, which is, estamos ganando el juego.
So it's about coming out on top.
Exactly. Now, gain is used when you acquire something that increases, like in quantity or value over time. So think about gaining weight, gaining experience, or even gaining knowledge.
So it's about accumulating something.
Exactly. And last but not least, we have beat, which is all about defeating an opponent. You use this when you triumph over someone else.
Yeah, like we are beating them.
Yeah.
Les estamos ganando a ellos.
Perfect.
Got it.
So even though all three of these verbs can be translated as ganar in Spanish, they each have their own specific meaning in English.
Okay. Now, before we move on, I want to quickly introduce the concept of back.
Yes. Back can be confusing, but once you get the hang of how it works with verbs like go and come, it's really pretty simple.
Okay, I'm ready.
So back basically means a regresar or volver in Spanish. And when you combine it with go or come, you're indicating a return to a previous location.
So like go back there, vuelve allí, come back here, vuelve aquí.
Exactly. You're adding this extra layer of meaning to indicate returning to that starting point.
And that's different from simply saying like, go there, ve allí, come here, ven aquí.
You got it. Without back, the verbs simply indicate movement to that location. Without the implication of returning.
Okay, I think we covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have. And it's amazing how much progress we've made
I know.
in such a short amount of time.
It really is a testament to the power of focused learning. I have to say, I'm really loving this bilingual approach.
Me too.
It's like we have a language tutor with us.
It definitely makes the learning process more accessible and engaging, for sure.
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to recap the key takeaways. It'll help us really solidify what we've learned.
Let's do it. What stands out to you the most?
Well, first of all, we tackled a bunch of essential verbs. You know, from expressing what we like and don't like with like and enjoy, to describing actions with verbs like prepare and try and help. There are just so many.
And we saw how these verbs can be used in those three basic sentence structures: affirmative, negative, and interrogative. Remember, those are your building blocks for speaking and writing English.
Right. And then we unraveled the mystery of make versus do and explored win, gain, and beat. Those tricky triplets that can be a little confusing.
Sure.
And we even looked at how back adds a whole other meaning when you combine it with go and come.
It's amazing how much we've covered.
I know it's full
in such a short amount of time.
It really is, thanks to this awesome bilingual approach. I feel like I've unlocked a secret code to English.
That's the power of connecting languages and finding those similarities that bridge the gap between them.
Okay, now before we say goodbye, I want to leave you with a final thought, a little challenge to help you keep practicing these verbs.
Ooh, I love a good challenge.
So think about all the actions you do regularly throughout your day. Things like making breakfast, doing laundry, driving to work, or relaxing with a good book.
Yeah, those are great examples.
Everyday activities
that we often take for granted.
Exactly. Now here's the challenge. For each of those actions, ask yourself, would you use make or do to describe it?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a great way to really test yourself.
Put it to the test.
And remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
It's all part of the learning process.
The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
And remember, every small step you take brings you closer to fluency.
So true. Learning English is a journey.
It is.
It's not a race.
So well said. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're here to support you every step of the way.
We are.
Until next time, keep those verbs flowing.
Yeah.
And those sentences building.
happy learning. Absolutely. It's all about enjoying the process.
Yeah, and, just keep exploring and keep practicing.
For sure.
And we'll see you in our next deep dive.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on English Learning Podcast. I want to congratulate you for taking the time to improve your English. Every step counts, so keep moving forward and don't stop. If you enjoyed this content and want to learn more, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button so we can keep creating videos like this. Let us know in the comments what level of English you're at and what topics you'd like us to cover in the next episode. Also, check out the links in the description for additional resources to help you keep advancing. See you in the next video. And remember, English Learning Podcast is here to help you reach your English goals. Keep learning.